Hello and welcome back to Pod Fiction. This week we'll be discussing Kids, released in 1995, directed by Larry Clark. With me I have Ethan.
You're right.
And our special guest Harley Hindle.
Hello.
So, Ethan, what did you think of Kids?
Well, I thought, judging by the audience reaction, that many people didn't understand it properly.
I would agree with you there.
Because the point they make is that it's not entertaining to watch, it's not enjoyable to watch, so it's not a good movie. So I think that's pretty dumb. That's a pretty dumb thing to argue, you know, because...
I'm with you on that one. I don't think the film's point is to be entertaining to watch. The director, Larry Clark, wanted it to be a realistic view of these kids' lives in New York. And it's the way it's shot. It's shot cinema verite, where it's literally, it looks like a documentary and it could have been real. Obviously, 90% of this is scripted, word to word, but it looks so real, and I think that the audience need to understand that in order to get this film.
I also think the subject matter itself is pretty... something that's on the screen looks really, hyperbolized, and it's a very film story, but I think it's hard to grasp, especially for many people, that stuff actually generally does happen, because it's a perfect movie storyline, the whole HIV virus and all that. But I think it's hard for certain members of the audience, of quite younger people who had a very different upbringing to the ones in Kids, that it's sort of hard to grasp how things like that really do happen. So, and as much as it's like a film storyline, it could easily be a story that happens in real life.
There's a scene in the film, the fight scene, where the kids beat up another kid, and that's based off something that happened in real life. It's based off a fight that happened at the Brooklyn banks, and there's a clip on YouTube of the actual fight, and it's so similar to what you see in the movie. And yeah, it's just, there's real aspects to that are brought into this film.
Yeah, I really like you said, the cinema verite, where it just makes it look like a documentary, very handheld sort of documentary style. They look at the actors through shop windows and bus windows and stuff like that, instead of just taking a normal perspective of, just sort of having the camera as its own sort of body itself, but the camera sort of embodies other people. So, it looks like a bystander in the shop window looking out on these kids on the street. One example is when Casper is urinating against a wall, and I think the shot's out of a shop window or a bus window looking out on him, and it's it looks so real. And all the performances are absolutely exquisite in this film.
I'd like to say that. I noticed you said actors. They're not actors. They're just kids. And they're just being exaggerated versions of themselves, and that adds to the realism, because most of this is real. It depicts what actually goes on in these kids' lives and most of other kids in New York. And with that scene where he's urinating on the wall, just the body language of the two characters, it's like they're in their own little world. Life goes on around them, and it's just those two, Casper and Tally, or whatever his name is. They're just in their own little world, and they don't understand that there's a world going on around them.
I wanted to talk about Casper, because I think he's a character that you don't tend to have an opinion on at all during most of the film, other than the scene where he starts that fight with that kid. He tends to be kind of just there in a way. He's not quite like Tally, who's clearly the main character. But even though he's along the side, I think your opinion on him tends to change when it gets towards the end of the film, when in the rape scene, because you kind of don't expect him to do that. He wakes up next to this girl who's passed out, and then he just goes and rapes her, and it's the way that scene is filmed, it's awful, because it's so stretched out to the point that it just makes you kind of feel sick. Because it's such a long shot, and it's horrible.
I think also that the fact that Casper in the beginning, who was just like the tag along to Tally. But at the end, he becomes more of this Tally character where he's doing more that Tally would do. And I think that kind of shows the peer pressure that's going on back in 1995 in especially New York. Like, the people you hang around with influence what you do.
Yeah, I also think, what's the girl's name? Jenny.
Close enough.
Close enough, yeah. I think that Jenny was quite an interesting character as well, because yes, she got this SDI, HIV, I think it was, she got. And the film is her trying to find Tally. Not quite sure what she was planning on doing when she found him, but she was desperate to find him, and she spent the whole day in that film looking for him. But then when she finally finds him, and she knows that he's giving an SDI to this other girl that he's having sex with, when she turns up. But she does nothing, and she just lets it happen. She just kind of looks and then walks away. And I think that's really...
I think her character experiences a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
Like, she didn't stop it because she was too late.
Yeah.
Because, like, she walks in, they're already doing it, and it's like she's overwhelmed with this guilt that she didn't get there quick enough to stop the STI.
I think it's a bit strange, really, how... Because she's got an SDI, and then Casper goes on and rapes her, so it gets passed on to him, and I think it's kind of like full circle in a way.
Yeah, I'd agree. Ethan, have you got any more thoughts on this film?
Well, I just think that, like Harley said, the tonal shift in that sort of last scene, where it goes from Casper the Friendly Ghost, which was like quite a light-hearted moment, probably one of the best moments in the whole film, to that, it just makes your opinion change so much on this character.
It's also like that one person can go from being just out of it, like really happy, and the whole tone, but instantly within a minute, they could do something so wrong, morally wrong.
I think he was definitely out of it during it, though.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because at the end he goes, "What happened?" And I think that was like one of the last shots.
Do you know the scene where there's the 4 kids sitting on the couch smoking weed?
Oh, yeah.
That's the only real scene in this whole movie. They literally went, "You 4 sit down." They're already smoking weed, just smoke weed, and it's completely improvised. That scene.
I think it's kind of scary in a way that those kids have grown up around the older kids who they've seen act in that way, and they've just picked it up themselves, and they're so young. They're like 12, maybe younger.
I think though, in New York and maybe even America at that time, that's just normal.
Yeah,
most kids that come from broken families or something just come up like that.
Because of how realistic it is, I think.
And that's the point that I think.
A lot of times I just wanted to look away, but it's such a good film that you just can't. You're kind of like stuck watching it.
I think even if you do look away, that's what the film kind of wants you to do. It's making this point that, yes, this may be normal, but why is it normal? This shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
And the audience members who just go, "Oh, I didn't like that because it was underage people and all these bad things," that's in a way a good thing. That's what the film wants you to think, but I don't know. It's just...
So what's everyone's opinions then about the whole, because obviously there's a big divide in the class. You've got most people saying that they hate the movie because, it was so horrible to watch, but then you've got more of the year 2 sides going, okay, it's a good movie. So what's everyone's opinions on the fact that sometimes art doesn't have to be enjoyed to be good?
I think this is a good example of this. Like, I think it's a good film. Even if I didn't like watching the film, I'd still think it was a good film because it's given me that reaction. If I was just sat through it going, no opinions at all, that's maybe something that either I've misunderstood it or it didn't like click in my head. I'd more rather be angry at a film or like saddened than just and forget about it the next day kind of thing.
Yeah, like just the fact that people can watch this movie and like feel such a response, like the anger and like the disgust. It's like that just goes to show that it is a good movie, because a movie's sole purpose is
to provoke a response.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just to go, oh look, it's an enjoyable experience. And I don't know if that could be sort of like contributed to the sort of modern age of cinema where...
I completely agree. I think that kids these days are growing up with like Marvel Universe.
Kids these days.
But they're growing up watching films that are made A, for money, and B, just so you can, like, enjoyable. And I think that's good and all, but then when they come to watch a serious film that's shot differently or has a different point that it's trying to make, they don't understand it, and therefore they just go, I don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point you make. Like, in our current cinema climate, most things, like most films, are just there to make sure that there's enjoyment in the audience, because I think they know that's what makes the most money.
Yeah.
But I think films like this, it should just be like, not that they should maybe see the other side of things where a film isn't just for enjoyment, but like just for the emotional response. Like, there's certain, like, look at there's loads of movies that do it. Look at Trainspotting, where like there's some horrible scenes in that, and it's like you're not meant to sit through and go, oh yeah, I really love this bit, because you're not. It's meant to be terrible, and the fact that you can watch it and go, God, this is disgusting, this is traumatizing, then I think that's sort of what cinema is. It's not just for enjoyment, it's about making an emotional response. Like, that can be enjoyment. There have been films with really happy endings and that are really enjoyable, but I think some films, much like Requiem for a Dream, I think this must have been a big inspiration for Requiem for a Dream, but films like that can be watched, and no matter what, you'll take mental notes from it, and it's one of those films you just won't forget.
Exactly. And I also think Larry Clark did this quite well, because there's moments in this film where you laugh, like I'm Casper the Friendly Ghost bit. That's just funny, and it's like you need that in these type of films, otherwise it's just all miserable, and the audience is like even more so like, I hated that. At least it's good. Yeah, it's like it provides the highs to the lows and makes the lows more powerful.
I honestly think the people that decided they didn't like the film because it was too, like, they just didn't enjoy it. They like didn't appreciate it as a good film, and naive in a way, because like it clearly is a good film. It's very well made, well put together. It's really good. It did what it was meant to do, so I don't see why people think it's not a good film. Yeah, you might not have enjoyed watching it, but I'd gladly watch it again. Maybe not yet, but one day I will.
Yeah.
And also people that said it's not realistic what happened in it, but it is. It's true. People are genuinely like that.
They don't know that because
they've not been brought up like that.
They're privileged enough to not have these lows in their life.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of this film is it's so relatable to most people. Like most people will have a friend that not necessarily has done something in that film, but like
it's at least
something's happened that you've It's like the party scenes, like the clip where it's just like you wake up in the party. Surely people have done that before.
Yeah,
that's so relatable.
Someone sat in front of me in the film that turned around afterwards and said, "That's not realistic. No one does that."
Yeah. I'm
thinking, actually, they do.
A lot of people do.
The fact that it is realistic is so. The fact that it is true and it's realistic, and that's the thing that really hits home in a way. It kind of leaves a lasting effect afterwards.
And I think that's partly down to Harmony Corrine and his writing ability. He was only 19 when he wrote this, and he starred a little bit in the film. He only had a couple of minutes screen time, but his writing, it was so minimalistic and simple, but it felt so real, and that adds to this happens a lot, like this is true kind of feeling of this film.
Yeah, just the fact that he was a part of that skating environment, like it just goes to show how that he's obviously experienced many of those things, like Stuart said after the film, that he experienced many of those things, and most of the characters were based off real people. So that's why the dialogue just seems so perfect in a way that, like you said, these first-time actors can come on and just like go through these lines, and it's like people were like, was it improvised? And just the fact that people are thinking it's improvised just shows how good the dialogue is, because it was so natural. And that's why I think the background of the writer like really, really helped this film. And I think it's very gritty as well, because most movies like this, like Happiness was another one where Stuart basically said, "Oh, it's going to be an experience, Happiness." But I think Happiness was sort of goofy, while Requiem and Kids were just very gritty and real. Because in Happiness, everything was all sort of like heightened and weird and strange. Then in this, it's completely 100% dead straight serious, and
But
it's like...
That's just two separate ways of giving off a message, and it...
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, I'm just,
Yeah. It's just like two directors, they're different paths on how they want to share this or a message. So Harley, do you have any more thoughts and opinions on this film?
I've forgotten what I've already said, but I think I've said everything.
Okay.
that I can think of anyway.
Well, I think that's it then.
Should we cut?
Should we cut? Okay, so guys, that is the end of Pod Fiction. We did the film Kids this episode, and oh boy, what a scarring film. Next week,
What is next week?
Stephen King's Carrie.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Can't wait for that one.
Very spooky ghost. No,
Isn't it about an exorcism?
it's about a girl with mind powers, isn't it?
I ain't got a clue. I need to watch it.
Well, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.
I've been Ethan Hazard, my co-host Joshua Keel, and our special guest, Harley Hindle. Brilliant.
Bye.
Casper, the friendly ghost, the friendliest ghost you know. Though grown-ups might look at him with fright, the children all love him so. He always says hello, and he's really glad to meet you. Wherever he may go, he's kind to every living creature.